Thinking of it as a partner, thought partner, collaborator, what are the things in your business that you would have a junior member do and be responsible for? And to really think about every aspect of your business and how you would delegate work to people in different parts of a process. So maybe you have a copywriter who's drafting emails for you, or maybe maybe you're ideating and then sending them to someone, and then they send you back a draft. Or maybe you have an editor that you work with, or maybe you have someone who helps you with analytics on your PPC or whatever. But there's when we think of it in terms of what would I be comfortable having a human do who might not know everything about that I know about running a business, but how could they save me time and effort and also not sacrifice authenticity or quality?
Welcome back to the 7-Figure Leap podcast. So today we're going to talk about AI, and not just AI everything, but some really practical examples of how I'm using AI and how my amazing guest is using AI with a lot of different clients. And he's much more on the cutting edge than I am, but we've actually built a tool together that we're going to be able to open up and dissect and talk about with you guys too. So Dan Cumberland is my special guest today. And Dan is one of 11 people who can say they were a founding member of the Podcast Profits Accelerator way back in 2022. So we've got almost 3 years of history, and we've done a lot of cool stuff together, including this project that we're going to talk about today. So Dan, I'm really grateful to have you as part of the podcast. Finally, it feels like I should say. So thank you for being here. And please just introduce yourself, however far back you think is relevant to your backstory, and let people know what you're all about.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. So pumped to be here. And yeah, just what a journey. Where do I start? So I started I'll go all the way back to ministry. I started my career in ministry, and I remember that was one of the things that, I don't know, I told you this the other day, Dustin, that attracted me to working with you is you're not just in it for the money, but for the relationships, for connecting, for helping. And that really, is a big foundation of who I am and how I do things. After a few years in ministry, got burnt out on that and went through this big pivot of what's next, and started my journey into entrepreneurship. Kind of entered that through a degree in psychology and theology, really with existential questions about what it means to be human and all these heady things.
Kind of perfect for the AI guy.
I know, right?
You're now becoming,
that's why I think it's relevant in such a surprising way. After grad school, I was I had two choices, either become a therapist or a psychologist, or I wanted to reach more than just one-to-one people. I wanted to reach the masses. It sounds a grandiose way of saying it, but also really discover that I just like starting things. I like trying things. I like learning and new endeavors, and entrepreneurship just spoke to me. And I think I found permission to pursue that. So spent the better part of the 2010s building an online business and doing a few other ventures, which eventually opened the door for me to get into software. Ran a software company for a PE firm, ran a venture studio for a few years, building marketing technology software. And that's about where we met.
Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time, but hindsight is 2020. That was coming to an end. And I was desperately trying to hold it all together, and joined the program really to think about as things are kind of shifting on the venture studio, can I build my consulting and maybe thought leadership around purpose and meaning, those kinds of things up as a meaningful income. And it did some of that, but then the venture studio kind of, I wouldn't say crash and burn, but it just ended more abruptly than I wanted it to. And was a big period, 2022, 2023, of just identity shift for me, having to figure out, I thought that I was going to be running the venture studio for a long time. I was doing that with a few partners. The reason it came to an end was one of my partners left, and we tried to bring another partner in, and it just was not a good match. So started picking up the pieces after this, existential crisis of am I actually an entrepreneur? Who am I? What, having to let go of so much. I feel like I could tell that's a whole nother podcast of this whole shift. But I started picking up the pieces and started doing some marketing work on contract for software companies, and discovered kind of through the back door, I guess I'm a fractional CMO. I guess that's what they call this, but wanted to do it differently. When I was running the venture studio, I had a team of about 12. It was kind of the core team running across 3 different projects or more at a time. And I was the hub, CEO, holding it all together, and just was, burnt out, just, herding cats all the time, and wanted to build my systems better. And at the same time, AI was becoming a consumer-facing product, that ChatGPT was out. So I wanted to see how far can I get using these AI tools to stay more lean and developed some methodologies around how to use these well. And found that it got me really far, and soon had people asking me questions about, how are you doing this or that, or how do you do this or that, and really discovered that I have a pretty unique perspective on it. Maybe as an early adopter, maybe as part of my background as a tech founder, and also because I've spent a lot of time thinking about what it means to be human, and that's one of the, I think, forcing functions of AI, is that it forces us to ask where's the line between what we as humans do and what we have the robots do. So started building projects for people, consulting with people, giving direction and insight, and now I'm AI consultant helping founders scale with authenticity, without losing their soul. So doing a lot of a lot on that side of thing, which we'll get into more. But that's a high level overview of where I've been and how we got here.
I love that. I love that recap. And as someone who lived through a little part of it with you.
Yeah, you did.
Especially interesting because I knew you had a ministry background, and I knew somewhere there's a fact in my brain that you had a theology degree and a psychiatry degree, but then I've been focused more on the Dan of present day, and we obviously got the project we've been working on that we're going to talk about. It totally makes sense now that yes, you're like the technology guy, and you worked with VCs, and you were doing software development and investing and all this stuff, and you got this ministry background and theology and these deeper questions about what a soul is and what humanity's for, and it's like, what a perfect intersection to work in with AI, with respect to AI, because, and I feel like there's this sort of like AI camp right now. It's like, you either feel like it's the most exciting thing ever and it's going to really help you grow your business, or it's doomsday and I might as well just give up business. And this whole idea of meaning and purpose, we're definitely at a really interesting kind of inflection point and all that. So I don't know if you have any kind of waning thoughts on that part, and then let's talk about Dustin AI, and then we'll talk about what else you're doing, and then we'll talk about AI as like a practical thing for people. But I don't want to
I'd love to.
The philosophical
talk about that
part
shift,
short.
the philosophical, because that's because I geek out on that stuff, because we're on a huge shift, and it's a painful shift, as all shifts are, and it comes with the positives and the negatives, right? Like the negatives that there is material impact on people. There are jobs that are being replaced by robots. McDonald's just in the last couple of weeks rolled out AI across all their locations. Like, we're going to be going through drive-throughs and talking to robots now, and not not humans anymore. So there is that happening, but then there's, in tandem with that, there's for the people who have access and the privilege to be having these conversations, people like you and me, I think that there's a huge upside, which is that we get to reclaim some of our humanity. And since we're talking philosophically, I'll put it in those terms, because we can give more of our time and our effort to the work that really matters to us and brings fulfillment, and is most meaningful. And to put it in like the context of jobs, I like to think about it in the shift from work being a function of the home and a homemaker and a farm, and to being like in the Industrial Revolution in the factory. It took people out of the houses into the factories where they're going, they're contributing to in one very small sliver to this product that they're building. And there's a quote by Henry Ford that says, he basically said, the problem with every pair of hands I hire is that it comes with a brain attached, which is it's just gross, saying that. But the factory mentality, the owners of the factory their goal was to make sure that you didn't have to think, so that they could have the lowest common denominator of employee that's easily replaceable. And what we're able to do now with AI is to take those functions of our work and hand at least some portion of that off to AI, so that then we can do the job of the factory manager, who gets to do the design, who gets to do the higher level thinking, and who gets to move closer to the fire, is how I like to think of the fire of meaning and purpose and fulfillment, and the thing that gets you fired up to get out of bed in the morning is not in the mundane and the details and all the checking the crossing the T's and dotting the I's, but it's in the impact, and it's in the creation. And AI is a tool for us that can allow us to do more of that good, meaningful work and less of the other. So it's not without pain, and it's not without a struggle along the way, but I get so excited about the upside.
I love it. Yeah. Last philosophical statement, and then we'll move on to some practical examples. But I think to just talk about how I see this also, and the magnitude of what it means. And I'm sure this is really cutting it short, but I was invited with my our middle child is a senior in high school, and she's in this really cool program called CEO, and it's like an entrepreneurial program within the high school system. And so they have all these crazy projects, and they're creating a business, and it's really fun. As you might imagine, I'm like, this is so cool. So I went and spoke, and I brought the Story Brand book, and I gave that to all the students. And it kind of dawned on me when I stepped into this room, I'm like, wow, like you guys are all 17 years old, 18 years old. And I reflected back on when I was 17 or 18 years old. I'm like, when I was a senior in high school, it was like I was in a really unique spot where I had 1 foot in the pre-internet age and 1 foot in the internet age. I'm 45 years old. So we kind of used computers a little bit, like internet a little bit in high school, but it wasn't really till college. And of course, my whole adult life has been complete tech adoption into the internet age. And I was like, you guys are in the same spot with AI, like there's this before and after line, and they're straddling it, and they're going to be in a really unique position where they lived without AI completely, and they're going to probably live with AI completely, just like we did with the internet. And I was like, it was kind of a profound thing. I don't know that they appreciated it as much as I did, but I was standing there like, this is kind of wild to think about. So
it is totally wild. And I'm so curious for educators, like how they're helping embrace that. I think it's such a complex problem, but I think it's exactly a great parallel. And that's exactly how I see it. Soon everything's going to be, it's already happening. AI is everywhere, so much so that soon we won't even be talking about it because it's just going to be an assumption.
Awesome. Well, obviously we could talk forever about AI in this sense, but I think it'd be fun to talk about this AI project that you and I worked on, and I'm still using very, very actively in our community. I think that'll kind of bring people a very practical example of how I'm using it, how Dan sees it, and then I know you've even evolved in the past several months because AI has, like, beyond that, doing some other cool stuff. So we'll definitely talk more about where you're going with this in the future. But I think let's camp out for a little while and talk about Dustin AI. And I say that with a grin. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, funny, inside joke feeling thing.
Yes.
But I mean, would you want me to describe sort of like why I did it, and then you can talk about how it worked?
Why don't you start there, and then I can fill in. I'm sure it'll give me more color to add as well. But yeah, why did you hire me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know, man. Good question. No, so this was just several months ago. So I've got, just give a little bit of context. I've got a Circle community. So that's the platform where our community's at. So if someone's in our accelerator program, our mastermind, or they're an alumni of one of those things, we've got Circle. And so you can imagine, if you haven't been in Circle, a lot of forums and DMs and courses, and like there's a lot of cool stuff happening, a lot of activity. And then we do a lot of live calls. Like I've literally done well over 1,000 hours of live calls, coaching people, teaching, Q&A, all that kind of stuff. So got this huge library of live interactions with people that have been through our Podcast Profits Accelerator for the past 3 years, plus all the other stuff we do with trainings and workshops and all that. And so I kind of had this vision. I'm like, it would be really cool if, like, in our community, you could sort of have my brain in the community available 24/7, where we got all this material that is kind of searchable, but not really searchable, right? What if we could like suck all that into a central brain, and then people could query it just for the things that I could help them with, so that, I'm still there live sometimes, but like, it's midnight on a Friday and I'm not available, and they're like, write my podcast pitch or help me with Story Brand. And it was just there. And it could be a proprietary ask. So I'll talk more in a minute, Dan, about like why I did it from the standpoint of marketing, positioning, all that sort of thing. But like from a utilitarian standpoint, what it is a sort of, think of your ChatGPT avatar that's been really trained with your voice. It's like that, but a special version of it that's me and all of my material, only inside our community and privately accessible. So hopefully that gives people a little bit of context of what Dustin AI is. And I'd love for you to talk more about like how you thought about this when I came to you and was like, can we build something like this? So
totally. Well, I loved it because it's a great challenge. Like, how can we build it, and what's the, from a product standpoint, that's how I put my product hat on as a tech founder. Like, what is the job to be done? The job to be done is a framework. It's very similar to Story Brand in a lot of ways. Like, what is the solution that people are looking for, that they're going to be coming to Dustin AI for? And that's, as Dustin and I kind of got clarity on this, is like, what are the problems? Like, what are the common queries? And we even, I think, brainstormed around some of these, like, help me with my podcast pitch, help me with my customer transformation. Like, what are the things that Dustin is already, that you're coaching people on in live calls, and then let's really aim this tool those pieces of your brain, right? Because there's a lot of things you could ask Dustin for recommendations on, the best wrecking or whatever, and he would have something to say, but that's not why people are coming here now to do that. So then the challenge was, okay, so we have the solution, we have the problem that we're trying to solve for people. How do we go about solving it? Which is, we start by, let's get all of the best of Dustin's content, of your content. I keep talking about you in the third person, like I'm talking to the listener, but
I'm right here, man.
Get the best of your content, and then extract from it all of your frameworks, your kind of the best of highlight reels, if you will, that are relevant to all of these topics, and then train an AI up on that and giving it parameters on how to redirect, and structure a conversation. So that's really helpful for the user, which includes things like if you do ask it for a wrecking backpack, it might tell you something about it, but it's going to redirect and say, I don't really want to talk about that. Let's talk more about your pitch or whatever might be.
Yeah, I think so. As far as what I thought was important and what you helped inform to make important, I think when I describe this to people, I talk about boundaries a lot. And it's like, you can go to any chat GPT and say, what would Dustin Riechmann think about this? And there's enough interviews and YouTube videos and this podcast, you can kind of get some pretty good answers. But
yes,
this is different because it's relying on a lot of that same data, plus a lot more proprietary data that's not publicly available. And it's structured in a coaching format. So
yeah.
If you say like, write my pitch, it will write a pitch, but it's not going to just say, here you go. It's going to ask you for context, and it's going to ask you the same things I would ask you if we got on a call and you're like, hey man, write my pitch. I'd be like, well, who are you trying to reach and what are your goals? And tell me about your business. Like, so it's not just spitting out answers. It's creating a coaching conversation that then results in an answer that eerily simulates what I would say, and it gives more context to that. So it may say like, well, here's the thing you asked for based on what you gave me. Dustin would also make sure that you're aware of this additional thought or this context, or you should also be thinking about this. Like, you didn't ask really a complete question. And so it's a pretty nuanced tool, I think, in that way. And I think that's one of the things I think is so cool about it, Dan.
Yes. I think that is, a lot of the opportunity for, whether you're a founder, whether you're running a brand, for leveraging AI to scale your business. And, I talked about like that, I'm passionate about helping people scale their voice authentically, is to take AI and give it the right instructions so that you're AI is always going to try to default to its training, right? It's the way that AI works is it's functionally a very sophisticated autocomplete. It's guessing at what you want it to do based on what it's seen before. And what it's seen is everything on the internet, which means that it's going to bias itself towards like generic marketing talk, generic marketing speak, which as marketers, we know that doesn't work, right? The best thing about marketing is if you talk to everybody, you talk to nobody, right?
Yep.
And so to give it the right context and the right instructions so that it's not guessing and filling in too many gaps as to what you want it to do, but instead you're supplementing, you're biasing it toward the right material so that it fills in those gaps with a better, more sophisticated response that are more on brand and more in your voice.
And we'll talk more about different ways to, not everyone needs a Dustin AI, but
yeah,
I would like to talk. So we talk I think people get an idea what the function is and kind of the role it plays. So like now we're running through a cohort of the accelerator. We still go through the same training, but we do in a live workshop setting. Instead of saying, here's a Google template, start writing your pitch. It's like, everyone open Dustin AI and it's already got the template built in, you know what I mean? So it's a shortcut live, but it's mostly used as an asynchronous coaching tool. But I think it would be incomplete if I didn't talk about the sort of marketing reason to do this, right? So I'll start very philosophical and I'll go very zoomed into like my thought pattern when I wrote the check to Dan and we did this. I mean, philosophically, we're quickly approaching, if we're not already at a time where information is sort of worthless, right? It's like, because it's so ubiquitous, you can go have me write a pitch using ChatGPT probably right now, right? But there's lots of other reasons to join a program, a community, and a coach. And I feel like Dustin AI serves a really important role there. And it's basically a moat around my information, because this is the only place you can get it in this way. It's a very complete version of my knowledge base, and it is nuanced and coaching you and has boundaries around it. So you get a very, I don't know, Dustin AI trademark. You get a very like certified response. This is really how I would respond and how I would have a conversation with you about this. It's not the generic publicly available part of my knowledge base. So that's more of that philosophical thing. But and so I wanted that tool, and I did want the utilitarian like resource for our community. But I also really wanted a slide in my pitch deck that says, and it includes Dustin AI, and like to be able to like show from a marketing standpoint that imagine you can have my brain 24/7 available to you, and it can do everything from story brand to podcast pitching to interview skills to offers to lead magnets, because all that's fed into it. And I've been on the receiving end or giving end or whatever of a sales call so many times since I added that, where it's like, here's our normal program, here's our bonuses, and then I have a whole slide that's like, and we have this Dustin AI. Here's all the things it can do. And people are like, whoa, like that's really cool.
Yes.
And so it's very much a differentiator. Like
I love it.
It's not the program, but it's a very important bonus, I guess you could say, in the way that I position it. So
yeah.
Again, and it's proprietary. We don't let anyone have access to it outside of our community. You got to be a member of Circle, which means you've paid for one of our programs, and so it's got a bit of a status or distinction that like this is the only way you can get access to it. With my marketing hat and my offer optimization hat, I felt like it really checked a big box of like having another proprietary, almost done for you piece of our offer that I didn't have to deliver. Like a tool could deliver it. So I just want to kind of share that part of it.
I love it. Well, I think it's like exactly what people are paying for, right? Is your knowledge, but not just your knowledge, but like they want personalized feedback. And like what a cool way to be able to scale that, right? They're still getting your frameworks, but they're also getting it applied to their specific problems and their specific challenges, which before AI, the only way to do that is you're either coaching them or you're paying someone else to coach them who's trained up, spend enough time with your material that they can give that kind of insight, all of which are great, valid ways to do it. But it's so cool to have this new method of delivery.
Yeah. And, maybe my mind will change at some point. But for now, it's like I only want it to be private in our community. It's like, you can go pay a subscription for Dustin AI because I still want the human element involved. So I want you to go use Dustin AI, get like the best version that it generates. And I still want to have a conversation with you on a live call and show other people how I might tweak that, or have you thought about this? Like there's still a human element that overlays it. So I wouldn't feel comfortable giving it complete independence and speaking on my behalf, but it's a great 80-90% tool that is a huge, not only saver of my time, but it's actually a great resource for the clients because they're not dependent on my availability and me trying to squeeze in a 2-minute answer at the end of a call. If that's all we have, like they can take time and space with it and show me the version that only needs 2 minutes to respond to as a kind of a final review. So I think it's a really cool tool. So if anyone does have a coaching expertise, group coaching framework, one-on-one coaching, community, I think it's a really cool thing to take your knowledge-based wisdom, experience, examples, suck it all up into an AI tool. I have someone like Dan who knows what they're doing, put the right parameters around it and the right interface to make it really elegant, plug it into the community that you serve. And I can speak from personal experience. It's been a huge, actual useful thing. And it's been a great marketing tool to talk about how we're different than many other coaching options.
I love it. I think that's the, just like what you're saying about like keeping the human aspect, and I think that's one thing I really respect and love about how you do business is just, it's relational. That's all about the relationships. And I think that when I encounter people who have a negative opinion of, especially AI marketing or scaling with AI, a lot of it assumes that we're sacrificing that human piece, that humanity, in order to achieve that, which is true. Some people do that, like they just use AI to automate everything, and then then we can just let the robots go take care of it, so then I can go sip pina coladas on the beach or whatever. But my philosophy is that like AI is a tool to reduce the friction and to free us up to do more of the good stuff, which for me and for I think a lot of your listeners, it's the people part, it's the connections, it's the relationship. So how can we inject AI into our business in ways that don't diminish our humanity, our connection, our authority and trust, but actually enhance it and give people more of that and allow us to do more, to show up better and to spend more time really in our zone of genius. And I think that for you, this is such a great way to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's I obviously agree. Let's move the conversation beyond just Dustin AI, and I want to kind of turn the spotlight back to kind of where you're at now, where you see this going. Obviously, you're doing this AI consultancy.
Yeah.
It's a really exciting time because it's a moving target all the time with the technology, but it's also a challenge when you're moving along with the technology. So yeah, I'd just love to know. We'll kind of close out here after this, talking more about like what founders should be thinking about right now for AI for them. But Dan, kind of with your own business right now, what's your focus? What types of things are you working on? What kind of offers are you cooking up? I just kind
Yes,
of want to
totally.
get the spotlight on that real quick.
Yeah, and the business is evolving. It's a big year. I'm a part of a accelerator with Amanda Northcutt and Level Up Creators, who was you were part of connecting me. She's part of your world and
Yeah,
connecting me
she's part
with
of my
her.
world. She's probably going to be on this podcast in the near
Yeah,
future.
she's great. But they have her team does this accelerator called an MRR accelerator, is what they call it. It's all focused on a monthly recurring revenue guarantee. So I'm building in public as much as I can my path toward $40,000 MRR, which our goal is to hit that later this year. We've got a long way to go. It's still early in the year at the time of this recording, but that's a big thing right now. And as we're building a lot of the offer and the product ladder and ICP, all of that's coming to focus. But right now, what my core offers are is I have an AI mastery cohort where I'm basically it's like a community and a community driven cohort, education and coaching cohort. So I'm basically showing as much as I can about how I build things like Dustin AI, but really focus more on what do you need in your business? What are the tools that you're trying that would advance the value creation and transformation that your business does, and how can you go about building that? So laying a foundation, kind of knowledge sharing, and then it's open office hour coaching, which is just super fun because when you start seeing the problems that people are solving in their business and how they're applying AI, it just sparks your imagination for what you can do in your business. One of the biggest problems that I hear over and over from people is that as far as why they're not doing more with AI is that they feel like they know that there's more, but what that actually looks like is so hard to actually like envision. And so just to be a part of a community that's doing that is a big thing. So that's one piece of my offerings, and kind of the next step up is more of a done for you or service, which is building tools for founders to help them scale their voice. And that kind of comes in two different directions. One is I have a package of core tools called the Founder's Voice package that I build and install in a founder's business to help them scale. It all comes back to the same idea of how do you make AI understand who you are, what you're trying to do, and be able to create content in your voice, but not just in your voice, but also in the specific context and syntax of the platforms in which you're communicating, so that you don't have to ask it to, take this idea that I just shared on this podcast and then write a LinkedIn post. And then you have to go back and format the whole thing, but it knows how you write on LinkedIn. So it knows your voice. You can feed it other information to get it to draft things for you, to be a thought partner for you or strategy partner, and also then formatting the content in the right way, because we communicate differently when we're talking, when we're writing on LinkedIn, when we're sending emails, when we're in Slack with our team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So building out a suite of tools that takes your voice and puts it in a scalable package, really. And then beyond that, it's custom projects where I could come alongside a team and build more things similar to Dustin AI that'd be more bespoke. So right now I'm working with a consulting team helping AI enhance their process of all their kind of core deliverables that they do with the businesses that they work with. Done similar things with coaches with their, as part of their coaching process to help enhance their methodology, enhance their deliverable by using AI, so that they're, again, still focused on their zone of genius, which is that transformation with their clients, but then giving their clients a better deliverable product at the, whether it's after a session or at the end of their sessions, in order to really advance that experience and just take it to that next level, where they can take the insights from a session and apply them, for example. So it could take a lot of different manifestations, but that's the high level overview of where I am right now.
The peek inside Dan's brain today, which
yes.
you're in like the fastest moving, I don't know,
industry, right?
offering
Yes.
vertical, or what you want to call it, AI. But
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense too. I like that you have, at least in the current mix, you've got the AI mastery cohort where you've got that kind of human to human interaction as well as insight into seeing how other people are using it.
Yeah. It's a
And
great research lab for me.
yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I was going with
Yes.
that, is like
Yes.
you get to see applications and maybe suggest ideas and let other people try them and see how that works. And then you've got the other arm, which is more that consulting, done for you service, where you get the more productized with the founder's voice. And then you still can do the bespoke, one-off, kind of custom, cool, innovative projects, like what you and I
Yes.
worked on
Yes.
for individual
Yes.
needs. So that's awesome,
Totally.
man. I think
Yeah.
that's exciting, and more to come, because over the next 6 to 9 months, you're transitioning, to see what's next there. But I think your current snapshot is really awesome. All right, so with our last several minutes here,
Yeah.
typically I'm like, hey, teach us a strategy, and someone tells us their framework. That's a little harder to do with AI. But I guess the way I would pose this question, Dan, our audience, you're one of our audience here. It's the solopreneur expert going from 6 to 7 figures. They're AI aware for sure, and probably using it in some form or fashion, but maybe don't really get it fully. I think the way I would pose this question, having you here as a resource, is like, what should we be thinking about? What's kind of the table stakes? Like, what do I really, what do I have to be doing right now with AI to not
Yes.
be completely lost in this world?
Totally. So
I
good.
don't know how to even ask the question, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah. Well, let me start trying to answer, and then you can keep redirecting as I go. But I think the two things that come to mind for us, as like literally, before we started the call, you're mentioning Circles, like rolling out some AI features, and I was mentioning Zoom just rolled out like agent features, agents everywhere. It's like every time I open the news, it's more agents. Like how do you even keep up when things are just continually evolving? And so the two things that I think are really important for founders right now, and will probably always be, is one, to have a clear understanding of where you want AI to fit in your business, which I think goes a little bit back to like, how to stay human in the age of AI. And then secondly, how to use AI, in your business, but also in a way that allows you to be agile. And I can speak to a little bit more, a couple more layers on both of those, but I think that should give us a good outline for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah,
on the first point perfect. of just where AI fits in your business. What I like to do in this, I do this with the cohort, as thinking about think about AI as a colleague, as a recent hire. Maybe after you really get really good training data, maybe it's a mid-level hire. But thinking of it as a partner, thought partner, collaborator. What are the things in your business that you would have a junior member do and be responsible for? And to really think about every aspect of your business and how you would delegate work to people in different parts of a process. So maybe you have a copywriter who's drafting emails for you, or maybe maybe you're ideating and then sending them to someone, and then they send you back a draft. Or maybe you have an editor that you work with, or maybe you have someone who helps you with analytics on your PPC or whatever. But there's when we think of it in terms of what would I be comfortable having a human do, who might not know everything about that I know about running a business, but how could they save me time and effort and also not sacrifice authenticity or quality? That's a really good proxy for how we should think about using AI in our business. And for those points of where I'm like, yeah, I'm not really comfortable, having someone send emails to my list without me having read them. Okay, then maybe that's a good line for you to be like, okay, right now, this can always evolve, but right now I can use AI, and I would love for my team to use AI for all of these things up until this point, and then I need a human to do this part. And to really kind of clarify what the role is, and regardless of the size of your team, and the bigger your team, I think the more this should be in writing and given to your team, so that people aren't wondering and being sneaky, okay, can I use ChatGPT here? Because
cheating,
that is that cheating thing. We want to play by the rules, but we also want to be able to do our job well. So to be thinking of around those terms, I think that is can help us define what is the role of AI in our business. And then as new tools come onto the landscape, it will really help us understand where that fits in our business, so that we're not having to reinvent the wheel every time something comes out of oh geez, there's a new a Manus agent tool, do I need that? And so then you're okay, now there goes 2 hours of my day trying a new tool or whatever. So So that's like at a high level and a thought and strategy level, I think is really, really important. And then the next piece, the second point, just about how did I say it? Oh, I lost my
Oh,
train of
you
thought.
had how to use AI to be more agile.
Yes, yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's why I write
Just
things
to be,
down.
yes, yeah. Write things down is a great start. Yeah, and agile is to be clear on your training documents. It's, a lot of tools now, more and more, are promising that they'll do things for you and sound like you, which is good, and many of them can. But the problem is that the deeper you go with these tools, they're usually some sort of a black box, which means then you're stuck in their platform. And as new tools come out with new capabilities, you don't have the ability to access them and utilize them at a high level. And so to, as much as possible, get clear on how to utilize AI, how to train AI on your voice, and don't just hand over the reins to any one tool, so that if some new, this a month or two ago when DeepSeek came on the market and everyone's like, oh my gosh, there's this new thing and it's so good, like you could, if you want, go start using that tool. Take your training data that you have. And so I'm a big proponent of creating training documents that you can attach as files, context files, to in any tool. And you can use those to make custom GPTs in OpenAI. You can use them to make projects in Claude. You can use them in literally any model, so that as new tools come about, you can take advantage of them. Or if you have different needs, like if you're working with proprietary ideas or private HIPAA compliant material on behalf of a client or whatever, you can take your same training data and put it into a different tool, and it will still retain, know everything it needs to know about you and what you're trying to do in order to accomplish your goals. And so part of that is understanding how to train a model and how to upload, not just throw all your content in, but distill that down into like really what really matters. But that's, I think that's the other piece where I think, because things are changing so fast, I don't want to be overly invested in any one platform. I think especially like I was driving in San Francisco and saw like a billboard for Claude that was like the no drama AI company or something like that.
Oh, really?
Which is like
funny.
a dig on OpenAI, right? Because like so many of the founders have left and blah blah blah. Like we don't know, a couple of years from now, we don't know even which of these companies is still going to be around.
Yeah.
And so all that's to say, like, to be able to be adaptable and agile.
I like that. Yeah, because you said agile. I was like, I wonder what he means by that, but now I totally get it. Like, basically remain independent. So if you're going to go through the work to assemble your feed data or whatever, like keep that as a separate resource and then attach it to the tool as you need it, versus all your stuff's uploaded one time in the ChatGPT, and that's the only tool you can ever use because it's all stuck in there. That makes a ton of sense.
Totally.
Well, Dan, this is fire hose of information, but I think we and you, to tip the hat, you managed that really well. Like it's still very practical and didn't feel overwhelming at all. So hopefully people can take that last 5 minutes and sort of create a game plan for how they're going to use AI as a thought partner, realizing that they get to choose how it fits into their business, and they get to be just decisive about that. And then I really like that last point of don't get married to one platform, like stay independent and be able to feed in what you need to feed in at any given time. That's really smart. All right. Well, I think the last thing we want to do here is make sure people know how to get hold of you, any resources or next steps that they should have if they're wanting to go AI with a creator and a founder who gets it, because that's what Dan is.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, I was talking about training and AI training your AI to sound like you have a resource, is a very robust guide that walks you step by step on how to build, a voice training document that's available at aitrainingguide.com. Just opt in there, and then you'll be able to get that resource. It's also what I teach in my cohort, and also part of what I do for founders. So if you don't want to do it yourself and go through my guide, happy to support you along the way. You can find me right now at LinkedIn, and is the best place to find me, or just jump on my email list at aitrainingguide.com and hit reply, and I can respond to any of your emails there. I have a new brand that we're launching shortly, but it's not live yet. But Dan Cumberland Labs is coming soon, but I doubt it'll be live by the time this episode goes live, but shortly thereafter.
Probably not, although I will say I had paused. I'm like, that's going to be a really valuable domain name, aitrainingguide.com.
I know, right? I could not believe it was available. I only bought it 2 or 3 months ago. So yeah, I'm was pretty stoked to own it.
That's amazing. So you can go fawn over his domain real estate, but the main reason is to go there to actually use it. And so, yeah, go to aitrainingguide.com if you want to, see what this is like and do it for yourself and follow the guide. And if you get into that and you're someone more like me and you're like, I really need someone that knows what they're doing, I'm never going to actually get this done, hire Dan, and then maybe you guys can talk about a really cool project that you can do to serve your clients and your community the same way that we've created this Dustin AI tool that I'm really proud of. So, Dan, thank you so much again for all the things over the years, your support of my work, and both as a client and then in a part of our community, and now with Dustin AI, which kind of serves our community on a daily basis. Like, I'm really grateful for our relationship and our friendship. And now thanks for being part of the crew here as a podcast guest too.
Yeah, well, I just want to echo that back to you, and just so grateful for just the way you continually show up and give to me. And, having me on the show is just one small piece of that. So appreciate you and appreciate, just your value first way of being in the world. It's really inspiring. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you. And I hope everyone gets a ton of value. Go to aitrainingguide.com.